Hey guys, welcome. Fedora Friday number 14. I got to fix myself a little bit here. Just been running around doing some administrative stuff, so I apologize if if I'm a little late. So, it is what it is, right? Sometimes you just got to handle certain things. I got a call right as I was supposed to go live, and I couldn't miss that call. So, hopefully you guys will indulge me on that and forgive me. But yeah, it's good to be back, right? Fedora Friday number 14. We got Miller's Crossing today. So, hopefully, we get some folks in the chat room and kind of viewing. If not, that's okay. Like I said, I think everybody's got stuff going on. So, I cannot blame anybody for that. Yeah, it's been a good week, man. It's been a productive week, I guess. Definitely been an entertaining week. Like I said, I just got back on Tuesday um, from Utah, from Salt Lake City, Utah. Technically, I got back from Denver, right? I had a layover in Denver, right? So when we went live for Hat Tuesday, number 14, but that the audio, I apologize for that. Hopefully the audio on this is going in a lot better, right? I got my wireless mic, so this should be coming through a whole lot better. But if not, then hopefully somebody will let me know. Man, so much good stuff happening. I've been interacting with Paul and with Ian about my upcoming trip to London. And so that's going to happen on Tuesday. I will go live Tuesday morning, if all goes as planned, right? I mean, you can never really tell, right? I mean, stuff happens, but the plan is to go live on Tuesday morning. The way I have it set up is that I've been talking to Robert Galt. If you guys have been viewing, the channel for a decent amount of time, you know that Robert Galt of Wolfbray Hatters, Custom Hatters, has been a guest here. And Robert is in part of the board of directors, and the plan is for Robert to come on Tuesday and talk about a book that he's read, and actually it's really intriguing, right? It's called Hatless Jack. It talks about like a lot of the truth and the myths involving. Hopefully, I don't butcher this, Robert, but the main point of the book was to talk about the myths and any of the truths that are surrounding the decline in hat wear in and around the administration, the Kennedy administration, right, with John F. Kennedy, right? So the idea was that Kennedy did not kill hat wearing, right, amongst at least domestically here, right? It's kind of like that idea of correlation does not equal causation, right? Just because right around that time you might have seen a sharp decline doesn't mean that Kennedy was the person involved with precipitating that, right? He wasn't the cause of it. In many ways, maybe Kennedy was just a symptom of it, right? Right. I mean, if you talk to Brad, the Haddett professor, and see some of his interviews, you would have learned that the hat wear, decline in hat wear, happened sometime, even in the beginning, sort of the tail end of the 70s. Sorry, not the 70s. Sorry, the 20s. Right. Again, let's just say we split the middle and we say the 40s, right? Right around getting into the Kennedy administration in 1960. That's already been like 20 years, really, of a slow decline, right? And maybe it happened a little quicker, but with that administration, but doesn't matter. I think it's just a little unfair to say Kennedy killed the hat, even if it was true, I probably wouldn't do that, like, I don't know, let's give the president a little leeway, I do know that, there's a lot of mixed opinions about every president, right? But it doesn't matter. The post is an important post. I do respect that post. And, Kennedy was a very, very respected president from a lot of folks, right? Again, I kind of view our presidents a little bit more reverential, maybe than the average person. But I try to do what I can. We got Crispy 3105. Welcome. I appreciate you coming back. I think it's been a little bit since I seen you. But yeah, it's good to have you back, man. Like I said, it's these streams are a little bit rough only because, well, depending on what side of the world you come from, right? So for a lot of our folks across the pond in the UK, this is probably a pretty good hour to kind of show up. I think they're about 5 hours. I always get this mixed up. 5 hours delayed, right? Or 5 hours ahead. Yeah, maybe 5 hours ahead. I don't know. So essentially, it's 5 hours later in the UK, the way I understand it. So, and maybe that works out great for the folks here. You got a lot of folks, right? This is Friday. You got a lot of folks. Maybe they're still going into the office, right? We do have like a return to office movement. So this time slot may not work well, but that's okay. Yeah, ahead. Perfect. Thank you. Yeah, I always screw that up. Like I said, I always screw it up. And I know, like, I have it in my head. I fix it in my head. And I say, yeah, next time I'll be prepared. And then I forget it again. And I'll go back to my default, right? Which is usually weird. It doesn't matter. Maybe I just need to stop talking about time things, I'm a big fan of Star Trek, right? So this whole like idea of time travel and like time warps and things like that, it's interesting. It just doesn't mean that I get it, fully. Yeah, snowy day. Yeah. Yeah, definitely here in the Washington, D.C. metro area is very snowy. I don't know how many inches we're going to get, but, we usually don't get a whole lot of snow. Like over here in the D.C. metro area, we'll have like maybe every few years, we'll get like a pretty decent snowfall. Right. So we'll have flurries just about every year, but nothing sticks. We usually get every few years, we'll get a decent snowfall that sticks. And then every few extra years, we'll get like what we like to refer to as snowmageddon, right? Something where it's like a foot or more or whatnot. And, and maybe some people will laugh at that. It's like, oh yeah, foot or more, that's nothing, but for us here in the DC metro area, that's a significant snowfall, right? That's enough to disrupt, man. We're a little spoiled with weather, you know what I mean? In terms of like, right, we're very temperate climate here in the mid-Atlantic in the US. And any little thing, even rain, even a decent rainfall kind of turns everybody into like just a bunch of zombies that like, or chickens with their heads cut off. So, it's not my favorite, not my favorite characteristic of the DC metro area, but it is something that's certainly true. You get a lot of school cancellations, right? If you guys have a kid in school, chances are, especially if they're going to a public school, that school's going to get canceled. And that really throws parents for a loop, right? Because usually you have, right, two parents that are working, right? And what happens is they don't plan, right? They still have to go into work, right? So a lot of times they don't get their work day canceled. So now they're scrambling to find a babysitter or some kind of, right? Maybe somebody has to stay home. One of the parents has to call the office and say, hey, my kids are too young to be at home and I can't find a babysitter. Even if I could, it'd probably be expensive as heck, right? Babysitting these days is really, really expensive. So, I don't miss those days. I tell you that much. That's why I'm kind of glad my son's grown and, even though at some point, like I did want to have more kids, but once he got grown enough to kind of like take care of himself and we didn't have to worry about babysitting, it was like, wow, this is cool. You know what I mean? Like I get to do my own thing now and not necessarily worry about childcare. So for all you guys that are still dealing with childcare issues, I feel you, especially if you're in the DC metro area or some other metro area that does something similar, right? They cancel school at a drop of a dime and then you're kind of stuck dealing with the fallout. I feel you, I completely understand and I empathize with you. But like I said, it kind of it balances out sometimes, right? Even though all the work that you put in as being a parent, it's kind of sometimes a thankless job, but you do get rewarded sometimes. And, I'll tell you the one thing, as my favorite reward as a dad was having my son buy me a beer for the first time at the ballpark, right? Like that's something really cool, to be honest. Just to have your son buy you anything, right? He just used to being the one taking out the wallet and ponying up. And then at some point, Mother Nature says, all right, now it's your turn, so that's a really good moment. I hope all you guys get to have that moment, especially the dads, and not for nothing. Let me just be honest. The beer at the ballpark is not inexpensive, right? So shout out to you, Chris. I appreciate that. Chris bought me beer and pizza at the ballpark when we went last season. Speaking of which, speaking of ballpark, some of you guys know I do have another YouTube channel. Right, this one is called Good Luke's Hats. That other one's called Good Luke Sports. I will be kicking off some more. Right, that channel. Right, I started off as Metsflix, and then I did a rebrand. Right, I put a little bit of time into this Good Luke's branding, and I feel like I really want to kind of just. Hey, thank you. I appreciate that. So yeah, I put a little time into this Good Luke's branding, and it really is. I felt like I have to kind of ride that wave. So I do have, this is called Good Luke's Hats. It might end up being called Good Luke's Lifestyle, right? Because this is more than just a hat channel, and at this point, right? Like the whole idea of this channel is to create kind of the online version of Cheers, right? Right, where everybody knows your name and they're always glad you came. But there will be brights. I've been talking to my nephew Jonathan, who's appeared as a guest here on the comments. He wants to start off a fragrance focused stream, and I want to do that with him, not for him, right? So Jonathan, if you watch this, I'm not doing that for you, because first of all, you're the fragrance guy. I'm kind of guy that likes fragrances, but you are a true fragrance guy. You do have a collection of fragrances, and plus you're younger, right? Like I feel like you're gonna go and you're gonna attract an audience that's gonna be attuned, and maybe I'll be the old guy, right? The old uncle, right? So I love that, because if you guys watch, well, I don't know if you guys watched some of the stuff that I repost on Instagram. There's a gentleman out in New Jersey, Arson. So anyway, my nephew Jonathan got me introduced to him, and he has this whole alter ego, which is his uncle, right? And it's the idea of the Puerto Rican uncle, and man, it's really hilarious. So shout out to you, Jonathan, for hooking me up with that Instagram, right? So I really do follow that Arson something. I forget what it's called. Maybe it's Arson NY or something like that. Either way, it's hilarious, and it basically is a running theme of like Puerto Rican uncles be like, and it's hilarious. Anyway, I feel like that's going to happen on this channel at some point, maybe in 2026, or whenever Jonathan decides to get his wireless mic hookup, and we'll figure it out. So this will probably morph into Good Luke's Lifestyle, but I do have Good Luke Sports. I will be doing a stream on Monday for Good Luke Sports. Right, so I will do that. It will be a Mets Yankees stream talking about the state of the Mets Yankees. Right, I got my older brother Sammy, who's appeared on this channel as part of Pyramid Streams. I'm gonna have him featured with me on Good Luke Sports. That way we can talk about the Mets. Right, I'm a big Mets fan. I'll have my Mets fedora on. Sammy will probably be wearing his Mets cap. He's not a fedora guy, but we'll talk about that. So I'm looking forward to that. Hopefully anybody out there that's a fan of sports. I will be covering as well UFC and mixed martial arts stuff. So if you're into UFC and MMA, I will be doing that eventually. So that'll be all part of Good Luke Sports. But in the meantime, we got Good Luke's Hats here, and we'll go right into the movie. You know what I mean? Because this is a really cool movie. Miller's Crossing. I got to tell you, this is a movie that I had not really watched prior. Right, it's a movie that I heard about, and really, it's just one of those movies that like the hat guys will always talk about. It's like, oh man, this is a great hat movie, and I just never got around to do it. And I knew I was going to cover it eventually. Right, so if you look up through the early shows where I used to go and allow you guys to vote, right? And hopefully you guys aren't sore about the fact that I took away the voting, only because I just felt like we weren't getting a whole lot of votes. Maybe when this channel grows bigger, if it grows bigger, I'll reopen it up to doing a voting system. I just didn't see a whole lot of participation, so I decided let me just go and pick some movies up, at first, and then maybe when we get bigger, I'll open that up and we'll see if there's a decent turnout. So hopefully, if you guys really want to vote for the movies, again, I will open that up again. It's just we'll see what happens if the channel grows bigger. But this movie, Miller's Crossing, it was like I watched this for the first time last night, and I kind of did a little bit of a rewatch this morning. And man, what a good movie. This is one of you guys, if you guys see the way I view movies, right? If you learned through all the Fedora Fridays about how I view movies, you guys would know that this one's like this is like a real hat movie. You know what I mean? Right? The Fedora is almost like another character in this movie. And and because I've only watched it, like a lot of movies that I've covered here, I've watched many times, right? So I have like maybe a more in-depth perception of what the filmmakers were trying to go after, or maybe just, again, just more projection, right? Because I've had a lot of chance to kind of rewatch the movie, either before I was a hat person, obviously after I became a hat person, and I have a lot of perspective. But this movie, it's going to be a little bit more surface level, but I will try to go into a little bit of the deepness, because this movie is really worthy of a real like introspection and analysis. So let me just show some stills, right? You guys know the format. I will show some stills here. If we get any guests coming in, then obviously I'll try to do a little bit of a recap for them. But yeah, let me just bring in some of these, and you can see right away, like this film, like it's chock full of hats, right, and it makes sense, right? This is kind of another Prohibition-era type film, right? It's definitely a gangster film, but in many ways it goes beyond being just a gangster film. Let's be honest, like it really isn't, right? This is a gangster film, maybe like a Bronx Tale is a gangster film, right? Right, it's got that stuff in it, but I don't think, right, this is a Coen Brothers movie. And if you guys know the Coen Brothers, right, you got The Big Lebowski, you got Fargo, I believe. There's just so many movies that I probably couldn't name them all, right? The Coen Brothers they're kind of geniuses. I'm a big fan of their films, right? Kind of like Quentin Tarantino. The Coen Brothers are another set of filmmakers that I think we're Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? They've got a line of movies that are really like cult favorites, right? They're just one of those directors or like filmmakers that you don't hear enough about, right? Like, that they're out there and people know who they are, but they don't talk about them like Tarantino or Spike Lee or Steven Spielberg or any of the other great filmmakers that we discussed here on the channel, or that you kind of know from casual conversation. But the Coen Brothers, man, they're really up there, and they create very artsy kind of movies, right? But artsy, but also like accessible. I don't even know if that's even like how that's even possible, but the Coen Brothers managed to pull it off. And I feel like this is another one, right? They go into topics that really kind of go beyond like the surface. And I think this movie is no different. And and obviously, if you're a hat person, you got this. The check marks are there. The check marks are all there. Right? This is a Prohibition era, right? You kind of know this is kind of the high era for hat wear. And people really do love like the high crowns and all that good stuff from that era. And we got that in here, but this movie is so much more. And this actor, Gabriel Byrne, and I couldn't even tell you, he's one of those actors that you've seen him, right? And he's been in these other films, but you're doing that thing like, all right, where else have I seen him? And you kind of know him. But this movie was a really great vehicle for him, right? He really does. We talked about Al Pacino. We talked about Christopher Walken, right? And we talked about Lawrence Fishburne, right? Especially those last two on my last Fedora Friday, right? For King of New York. And the eyes, right? The acting with the eyes. Gabriel Byrne is another guy that really did a great job at least in this film. He just has those kind of like that 1,000-yard stare, right? Like he sees through you. And I always think of like Al Pacino, right? He's like, for me, that benchmark, right, for acting with the eyes, right, from The Godfather, for both The Godfather 1 and Godfather Part 2. He just has that stare that really goes right through you. And Gabriel Byrne really nailed it here. Now he plays Tom Reagan or Reagan. I'm just gonna go with Reagan because Ronald Reagan. But he plays Tom Reagan, And Tom Reagan really is kind of like he's like the right-hand man for one of the local Irish mob bosses, right? Um, but again, he's the right hand. It's kind of like the like he would be like the consigliere, the counselor, right? For the Irish mobster, and we'll go into that a little bit more. But there's so much more here about this man. Obviously, you can see this look that he's got. Right, he's got the fedora, but he's got it on the back of his head, right? Right, I call that Frank Sinatra style. He does like kind of this, and has it at the back of his head. Really, really classy look. And this guy's just a deep guy, right? So, I mean, right, obviously you see him here with the fedora, let's take a look without the fedora, and which is like this look, right? This is very Al Pacino Godfather, right? Like that the legs crossed, he's kind of laid back, he's kind of looking right through, like assessing the room around him and what's going on. Like this is just a classic, right? And I think that guys really respond to this because they kind of see what this guy's about, right? You see him looking there, and that he's not just letting things happen, right? He's thinking ahead. Yeah, let me just go into the next thing, because this really, right? So we showed this still. We showed them without the hat, and then we get just the hat by itself. This is a very, very powerful kind of like symbol or scene in the movie, and it gets great. It's kind of like that feather in Forrest Gump, right? Or that paper bag, that plastic bag in American Beauty. If you guys seen those movies, you guys know what I'm talking about, right? You could tell that the filmmaker, right, in this case, the Coen brothers, they were trying to use symbolism here, right? And what does the hat represent? Well, I mean, for me, the hat represents a lot of the idea of control, right, and predictability. If you guys have listened in to this channel before, you guys know that human beings, right, the psychologist in me is always going to come out in these streams. But human beings in general, we crave predictability, right? We crave control, right? And we vary, right? We vary in our individual differences and how much control we need. But I feel like the fedora in this respect really does in many ways represent control, right? Or at least the illusion of control sometimes, right? We talked about this in terms of like wearing hats. We wear hats sometimes because, well, it makes us feel a certain way. Sometimes it makes us feel more in control than we actually are, and that's a good thing, right? Remember we talked about like the idea that the fedora and just hats in general can be like another form of like, it could be the guy's version, right? Hopefully I'm not getting too gender focused, but for a guy, like an adult, let me just even take it away from guy, just the adult person's kind of like teddy bear, right? It's kind of like an emotional support blanket, right? So as a kid, you get to wear your blankie, and then maybe as an adult, you're like, I'm not gonna carry on a blankie, but I will carry your hat, right? Or maybe it's your favorite jacket, or who knows, maybe it's a piece of jewelry or a watch, which I'm not wearing right now because I had to set it down when I went to shower. But yeah, I feel a little bit naked without my watch, to be honest. You can see the lines on my wrist. Anyway, but yeah, whatever it is that makes you feel safe, right? And I feel like the fedora really in this movie kind of really did that for Tom, right? And it was a beautiful analogy, to be honest. The other part of the fedora here is right. We talked about, right, that. Well, I don't know if we talked about it, but I know I've mentioned it. I wear many hats, right? And not just literally, right? So I got literally a lot of hats, but right, as a person, I talk about I wear a lot of hats, right? And all you guys do, right? It's like right, yes, I'm a son, right? That's one hat I wear. I'm a Hispanic man, right? I'm a Puerto Rican descent. That's another hat I wear, right? I'm a Mets fan and a baseball fan. That's more hats that I wear, right? I'm an MMA fan, right? I'm also a brother, right? I'm a brother to a bunch of siblings from one of you who you met on my channel, right? My brother Sammy, right? I'm also I don't know if I mentioned this already, but I'm a dad, right? I don't know if I just asked. I know I'm a son. I'm also a dad, right? So a brother, a son, a dad, right? I'm a psychologist, right, by training, and again, all the hats that we wear, right, and a lot of that is tied into our identity, right, and a lot of that is steeped in relationships, right, and how we are in relation to, right. I talk to my sister a certain way. I'll talk to my mom a certain way, just like I talk to my brothers a certain way, and I talk to my son a certain way, right? And there's commonalities and all that, but certain times when, depending on who you're talking to, you wear your different hats, right? Maybe several of them at the same time, but they're all part of you, right? They're all part of who you are, but it's only in context to who you're talking to. And I feel like there's something besides the idea of control. The Coen brothers were definitely using the idea of Tom Reagan and his many hats and how he wears it and how he is able to implement the many hats, right? And again, he only has one hat in this movie that I'm aware of, but the idea of wearing a certain hat with certain folks, right? That is a thing. So I don't know. I feel like maybe this is maybe I'm completely wrong. I'm just projecting, but that's okay, right? That's what you're here for, hopefully, right? You guys might see this film and have a completely different perspective, and that's okay, and that's equally as valid, and maybe even more valid, because maybe you've seen this movie so many times that you have a deeper level of understanding. But I really, really, really like this movie in terms of the symbolism, right? Again, if you're just here for the hat candy, we got that, right? There's hat candy all over here. But if you really like analysis of movies, right, there's a lot to chew on here, right? I can't wait to rewatch this movie and then come out with something, right? Because I remember I mentioned this before. Some of these movies, like The Godfather, A Bronx Tale, I've watched so many times, right? Carlito's Way, Donnie Brasco. I've seen these movies so many times that I can't help but keep getting new perspectives from it, and and new insights, because that says more about where I'm at, right, in my level, in my life journey, right. I'm viewing this through my lens, and as I grow and I interact with the world, I'm going to view things, right, the same thing I viewed 20 years ago. I'm going to view it with a different lens now because I'm 20 years older. I got 20 more years of life experience. So yeah, it really is like the Fedora here in this movie. Really, it's another character in and of itself, right? And there's probably a whole bunch of other meanings, right? The Coen brothers are those type of filmmakers that they put stuff in there and it works on so many angles. They're true artists, to be honest. And I'm really big fan. And so yeah, so obviously the fedora here in the woods, blowing in the wind, that is a powerful symbolism. Like I said, it's very much like the feather in Forrest Gump, as well as the that plastic bag in American Beauty. It really is beautiful to watch, and you kind of sit there and you're like, this is no accident, right? This is not just something, right? When you watch a film that's only like 2 hours, right? There's so much that could go into those 2 hours. When you see it on screen, you got to think that it's there, right, for a major purpose, right? Like really good movies, there's no wasted scenes, right? Every scene's in there for a purpose, to tell a story, right, and to advance the story. So you don't watch films, right, unless you watch something where either it's a terrible movie by like amateurs, or two, you're watching like the uncut, right? Like basically, like there's movies where they'll get in all the footage that was ever shot and they'll try to bring it into a DVD. That way, for the true fans that want to see everything that was shot, they'll go in there. And sometimes you get a lot of fluff in there. There's a reason why it went to the cutting room floor, right? Because the producers and the directors and everybody else involved in those decisions, they decided, you know what, this is not good enough to keep into the final cut, right? And again, I like both versions, right? I like director's cuts and I like the uncut stuff, right? There's a lot of uncut footage for a lot of movies that I'll watch because I just can't get enough. But I do respect the final vision, right? I do love the fact that I get to watch the final as the director and the producers and everybody else involved intended it for the audience to watch it. So yeah, so the fedora here, definitely, and you'll see some more stills of the fedoras. There's a lot in here to take in, but I'll try to cover, as I always do, I try to cover the characters first and give you some stills and maybe tell you a little something. Again, this might not be as deep of an analysis because I've only watched this movie, let's just say twice at most, and there's no way I'm going to be able to capture every single thing, at least to the degree that I have in previous times. I'll show you another still. This is interesting, right? I don't even think this is from the movie, right? This kind of looks like it was photoshopped, but it's an interesting take, right? And I don't even know if you guys are going to guess why I think this is an interesting still. Besides the fact that it's got great hats, right? Like obviously you're getting a big helping of Tom Reagan's fedora and his whole outfit, right? His kind of cool look, right? Very, very snazzy, right? He's got the two front dents. But what took me aback was the guy in the middle, right? I'm like, I watched this movie twice. Let's just say I watched it twice. Right? Yesterday and this morning. I did not see Tony Sirico. That's Tony Sirico, aka Paulie Walnuts, right? From The Sopranos, right? I'm like, he's in this movie? And he's not. I mean, maybe there's a chance that Tony Sirico was an extra or maybe had some kind of connection to this movie, right? This movie came out in 1990. Tony Sirico, I believe, was acting during that time, right? I think Tony Sirico, he might have been in The Bronx Tale, but obviously you might know him later on from Gotti and obviously The Sopranos. But yeah, I don't know why Tony Sirico happens to be in this still. If you guys know, you can let me know. Maybe he was an extra. Maybe he got. Maybe he was cast, and maybe his scenes made it to the cutting room floor. I don't know, but there was no way I could look at this photo and not notice that was Tony Sirico, who's passed away just recently, I believe. Great actor, obviously. It has been in all the great, mob movies, and just a character, real character. Tony Sirico was one of those guys that, a lot of folks would talk about. Like he was the same way you saw him on camera was the same way he was, when the camera was not shooting, which, is wild, right? Wild that Paulie Walnuts, that really wasn't much of a stretch, right? That Tony Sirico really much was like that. And if you watch a little bit about like the life of Tony Sirico, you know that the guy was no stranger to breaking the law, right? He was like arrested, like, many times, right? On some really serious stuff. The guy was no joke. So yeah, shout out to Tony Sirico. He was like one of those guys that just apparently wasn't acting. He just was. They said, "Hey, you're the Tony. Just be yourself." And we're gonna love it, and we did. All right, shout out to Tony Sirico. I don't know who the gentleman on the right is. He kind of looks like the gentleman, the tall guy from you know who I'm talking about. He played Ethan Cochran. He was Zephyr Cochran from Star Trek. We saw him in L.A. Confidential as the police chief, the tall guy. Oh man, Cromwell, James Cromwell, I believe it's James Cromwell. It kind of looks like him, but I don't know, right? So obviously this has got to be a Photoshop because he's also not in this movie. But this gentleman does look like him. Obviously, James Cromwell is like 6'6" or 6'7", something really tall guy. So this is obviously not to scale. It's some Photoshop. I had to give this a little bit because, again, because of the characters that are here, I had to like make sure that I showed this. It was really cool, and it just had some really good hats. So yeah, as far as I know, this is Gabriel Byrne. I know it's Gabriel Byrne. Tony Sirico here in the middle, and James Cromwell. Hopefully I said that correct. James Cromwell. Again, played the police chief in L.A. Confidential, which we covered in a past Fedora Friday, as well as Zephyr Cochran in the Star Trek series. Really great character, and so many other movies. But really tall guy. So I know this is not like an actual photo where they're standing next to each other. It just doesn't look even close, right? It looks photoshopped. but I thought it was a cool photo nonetheless. So I'll go on. This is another still here that I don't remember from the movie. And again, this does look like Tony Sirico here, but I could be wrong. Maybe it's not. It does look like him here. Maybe it's not him. But some really good hats in here as well, right? And you can see, Gabriel Byrne, right? Tom Reagan here, kind of just looking at this chaos happening in front of him. And it just fits with his character, right? Like if you watch this movie, even though you didn't see this scene, again, if the scene happened, I don't remember it. Again, remember, I only watched it twice at most. Maybe the scene happened and I just didn't remember it. But it doesn't matter. It does fit. Like this is something that you probably would see Gabriel, Tom Reagan, doing in the middle of chaos, right? He's just a cool, calm, collected character, especially when he's got his hat on and his full outfit, right? His trench coat and his cigarette, right? He's got his hand in his pocket and smoking puffing on a cigarette. Just a calm, cool, collected dude. So yeah, really, really cool still here. Another nice Fedora shot, right? Again, remember, Tom Reagan is the right-hand man for the local Irish mob kingpin, right? He's just a cool character, right? He's the guy that has all the answers, right? He's the guy that the mob kingpin, they really want Tom on their side, right? He's kind of like, in many ways, he's kind of like maybe Tom Hagen, right? He's not a guy that does dirty work per se. He's a guy that uses his brain, right? So he's kind of like a mixture of Michael Corleone and maybe Tom Hagen, right? It's just really cool character, and like the outfit's impeccable, really impeccable, man. The hat is just gorgeous. You can see that felt, right? He's got some brim trim, right? Just a great looking hat. And yeah, you know what? He's got it not down low, right? So obviously, when he's trying to be more sinister, he takes the hat, he puts it down low, right, to kind of give him a little cover, right? And it really goes well. He kind of looks like a guy you don't want to mess with. It's really cool the way they use the outfits and the hat in particular to kind of like paint what the character is trying to elicit, right? It's not something we haven't seen before. But it's really cool. So shout out to the Coen Brothers. I don't know who the costume designer, the costume director was for this film, but whoever it was did a bang up job. Like the hats and the whole outfits in here were bang up, just really sharp. Let's see here. Here's kind of him back to the more approachable with the Frank Sinatra style, right? Still looking cool, even though he's sweaty, talking to a cop, still calm, cool, and collected. But yeah, he's not trying to be sinister. He's trying to look at the way he's using his eyes. He's kind of like staring through characters. I really love what Gabriel Byrne did with this Tom Reagan character. Just a bang up job. Here's a interesting, right? This is kind of a moment where he kind of loses his cool a little bit, right? And again, remember, you don't come in here not expecting spoilers, right? So I don't want to be like tied into like keeping all the spoilers away. But here, this particular scene, he's being handed a gun so he can kill somebody and he was not really expecting having to come out here, right? So I'll just kind of give you a little bit of that scene, right? He was like, oh boy, they're expecting me to kill somebody, right? And somebody I know who I don't want to kill. And that's when he's like, oh boy, this is where right? He kind of loses a little control, right? He's like, this is not something I expected, right? Tom Reagan is the kind of guy that really, he does things, right? And he craves predictability. He thinks ahead of time so that he can expect everything before it happens. And this is something you can tell with his eyes he was not expecting, and he's going to have to deal with. Just a really cool scene. And obviously you got some good guns in here, right? So this is, I couldn't even tell you what gun this is, but it's probably, to be honest, a 22, right? It looks like a 22. It looks like one of those Ruger Mark IIs, but it's not. Obviously it's not, because the Ruger Mark II has a much more curved, right? A curved grip, right? So that's an unmistakable gun because it's based, I believe, on the German Luger, right? So Ruger and Luger are kind of there's that tie with the Mark II pistols, and that's a great pistol, by the way. Right. So I had a Browning Buckmark at some point, and that was I just chose the Browning Buckmark as my 22 pistol of choice. But the second choice obviously would have been the Ruger Mark II, just an excellent 22 caliber pistol. It's like iconic. Right. If you watch the movie Assassins, right, you can see that the Assassin's choice was a 22 Ruger. Right. That was and I think even in this movie they mentioned a 22 long rifle as a woman's gun, but in the movie Assassins, right, with Sylvester Stallone and Antonio Banderas, right, and Julianne Hough, they mentioned that was the assassin's choice, right? There's a couple reasons I believe for that. One, because I believe the 22 long rifle is one of those bullets that kind of ricochets, right? Once it enters the target, it keeps going. So it really does damage, right, for such a small caliber. And it's also, right, so it's obviously low recoil, so it can be more accurate. So for those of you guys that don't really like the 22 long rifle and think of it as a sissy caliber, it's not far from it. So anyway, enough on that. Just for the gun guys, just wanted to talk about that. Some more scenes you can see here, right? It's a lot of chaos happening. This one looks like, right, Tom Reagan's character looks a little bit like, oh man, what's going on, right? This is a guy, again, that doesn't like to be out of control, right? He doesn't like to see chaos and not, and his facial expressions are really great in this movie, right? Besides the hats, you can see a lot of the hats around him. He's surrounded by some flat caps and mostly other fedoras, right? This gentleman right here is wearing a flat cap. Everybody else has kind of pretty much got a fedora, and then he's being kind of pursued here by Leo, and we'll talk about Leo. Leo is his boss, right? He's the Irish mob kingpin, and he's kind of being pursued by him. And he's worried, right? He's like, man, I don't know what's going on. I don't know what's going to happen next, but he's like, I'll deal with it. Again, another still of Tom Reagan not in control, right? This is him in the woods, right? He is, I believe this is the scene where he's kind of like, he's coming face to face with the terms that he's going to have to end up murdering, somebody that he doesn't want to murder. He doesn't want to murder anybody. He's just not that kind of gangster, right? He's a counselor. He's not a guy that murders people and gets his hands dirty. He's the thinker. And he's like, man, I'm going to have to actually do this, or I better come up with something quick to get out of this situation. This is him, right, with looking at the female lead. She puts a gun to his chin, right? This is just some of Fallout. We'll talk about her a little bit more, but you can see some of that fedora action here, and you can see, I guess it's that brim trim, but you can see some of the stitching here on the brim. Really cool shot. And obviously Tom Reagan's not cool. He's not calm, cool, and collected, right? He's got a gun. He's got this female who, he cares about. She finds out that he potentially did something really bad to her brother, right? Took out her brother, and she's upset. And he's kind of like, what's going on, right? I'm not in control, right? Remember, control is a theme here. All right, so enough of Tom Reagan, right? We already saw his boss Leo, played by Albert Finney. This is Albert Finney. Wow, what a great! I don't remember where else I've seen Albert Finney, but this guy is menacing, right? Like, look at that stare, right? This is obviously Tom Reagan right behind him, right? With the being calm, cool, and collected, right? He's the right hand man for Leo, the boss, right? The Irish mob boss. And just amazing, kind of like, I guess I'll say villain, right? I mean, there's not really any great people in this movie, right? This is one of those movies that if you really want like redeeming characters, right, there's really not that many to be found here, if any, right? They're all kind of sleazebags. So that's an interesting piece in all of this, is that right, we talked about like the good guy with the moral ambiguity, right? And I guess that would be Tom Reagan, right? Tom Reagan would probably be that good guy with that moral ambiguity. Everybody else here is just like, they're not great people. There is some ambiguity, right? With Leo. Leo is, he has a soft spot, right? He wants to get married to the female in the movie, right? The female love interest, right? And that's the only soft side you see from Leo. Also, you do see Leo having a great relationship with Tom, right? He kind of considers Tom as kind of like his son almost, or at least his brother. Like, I don't know. Whatever it is, you see right away that Leo has a tremendous amount of respect for Tom Reagan and how valuable Tom Reagan is to his life. So other than that, you just see this, like, don't mess with me. Like, this is Albert Finney had a great stare. And you can see here, right? It's like, this is like Tom, this is Leo coming after Tom after he finds out that that Tom has been sleeping with his love interest, right? And we'll get to her in a little bit. But yeah, that's when all bets are off. And Tom, Leo is one of those guys. He's one of those bosses that does get his hands dirty, right? Meaning that he doesn't care, right? You can see him here literally rolling up his sleeves to go punch the lights out of Tom Reagan. And then you can see that his goons right here behind him. He doesn't need them, but they're there nonetheless. And you can see it's like, there's no winning in this situation, right? Leo's going to mess you up. And you can see him approaching sooner, right? He's still rolling up his sleeves. And you can get that, like, this is a bad dude, right? This is a bad dude. And he looks really sharp with the suspenders, the tie and the suspenders, right? But this is a guy that's like, he's going to get his hands dirty, right? And you're going to see him in action. So Albert Finney does a great job, right? He doesn't really, I don't think you even see him with a hat until the very end of the movie, right? He's mostly hatless in this movie, but all his goons are pretty much with hats. So I thought it was really, really cool look. You can see him here, right? The iconic Tommy gun, right? What Prohibition era gangster movie would be complete without the Tommy gun, right? So we showed it so many times here with the Untouchables. We seen it with the Bondurants, right? With Lawless. Yeah, it's just, obviously like a gun that was used by criminal figures during this time, and it was a serious weapon. Just probably not very accurate, but what it lacked in accuracy, it made up with sheer volume, right? The drum magazine here, and you can see it smoking throughout the movie. And you can see him. Leo. They just attempted to assassinate Leo. They burned his mansion down, and he's there chasing them, right? He's not running away. He's literally chasing them down with a Tommy gun. Pretty badass scene. And it shows you that Leo, right? The director's really trying to tell you that Leo is not to be messed with, right? Not that you didn't know that before, but when you see him in action, you're like, all right, this is a serious dude, right? He's not going to run from anybody. Let's see if I just make sure I didn't miss. Okay. Yeah. You can see here, right? After he chases away the would-be assassins, right? He just calmly, right? He's in the middle of the street, just finished firing off a bunch of rounds of his Tommy gun, just goes right into his pocket and pulls out his cigar. And you say, there, that'll learn you, right? Like, man, what a badass character Leo was, just a great showing. And he's in there in his robe throughout the whole time. He's there with his robe, right? Like, he's doing all this after, like, just trying to chill and relax. It just shows that he's always ready. He's always ready to do dirt. So let's see if there's any more for yeah, this is the very end of the movie, right? He's walking away, and you can see he has his hat on, right? He actually had a yarmulke on, I believe, right? Because he was he was gonna get married to Verna, who's Jewish, and they were burying Verna's brother. Yeah, you can see that he had a hat in his hand. He never actually put it on, as far as I can tell, but it goes to show you he did have a hat, right? It's kind of like the Kennedy thing, right? He didn't want to, well, if he wasn't wearing the hat, he was at least trying to carry it around in his hand. I just thought that was pretty cool. Maybe Albert Finney wasn't really big on wearing hats. So he's like, all right, I'll carry one, instead of wearing. I don't want to ruin my coif. So yeah, I don't know. I'm speculating. This is the other mob boss, the ascending mob boss, right? So Leo is in power. He's trying to maintain power. And then you have Johnny Casper, played by John Polito, right? You guys know, you've probably seen John Polito in a lot of movies, right? He's one of those guys that are like kind of these like creepy, like creeps, right? I don't know. I remember him as the pawn shop owner in The Crow, right? He was just that sleazebag pawn shop owner in the movie The Crow with Brandon Lee. Great movie too. Really good movie. But yeah, he plays the Italian mob boss, the ascending mob boss called Johnny Casper, who's trying to essentially he's trying to play nice with Leo by asking him to take out this Jewish bookie, right? That was ruining. The bookie was messing around with his fight fixing, right? With his action. And he's basically there to kind of show respect and say, Leo, just give me the okay so I can kill this guy. And Leo says no, right? So this is kind of this creates the tension right away in the beginning of the movie where Johnny Casper is trying to hey, I'm trying to be nice. Let me do this. Leo says no, even though, right, Tom Reagan's in behind watching all this play out. He's like, oh boy, right? He's like, this is not good. So he's trying to advise Leo to hey, don't mess with Johnny Casper, right? We should just give in to him. Leo says no. Johnny Casper gets irate and basically says, I'm gonna do it anyway, right? So you're not gonna tell me what to do, right? It's like, I'm too big for that now, And then Leo, right, goes back, right, says, you're only as big as I let you get, Johnny, right? And it's like, man, you got some two badass characters kind of going back and forth. It's really cool to watch. Really cool to watch. So yeah, Johnny Casper. I thought he did a great job, right, of playing this role. I don't know, John Polito. Might be the first time I've seen him as kind of like a boss type character, right? He's usually that creepo, but he's still comes off as pretty creepy in this movie. But yeah, he does a good job as Johnny Casper. And Johnny Casper really doesn't wear hats either. This is the one scene I found where he's wearing a hat. It looks like a Homburg right here. I'm pretty sure it is a Homburg. I can see some brim binding on this hat, right? But the main thing that you see here with Johnny Casper, right? So obviously Tom Reagan was Leo's right-hand man. Well, Johnny Casper's right-hand man is this man right here called Eddie Dane, right? I'm sure he's called Eddie Dane because he's Danish, but I could be wrong. But yeah, he is another great character in this movie. Just really underrated. Also, pretty badass character. So we'll show you some more photos of Eddie Dane. J.E. Freeman does a really good job of portraying the sinister guy, right? The sinister right-hand man. This Eddie Dane is a guy, right? He's not just a counselor like Tom Reagan is, right? He's a right-hand man that actually does dirt, right? And this is probably one of the reasons why Tom Reagan is able to infiltrate and get into Johnny Casper's circle, right? He's basically doing kind of like a con job, right? He's going over, he's pretending to sever ties with Leo, and then he jumps over, right? He actually does sever ties with Leo, right? He has to do it for real in order to be able to make sure that he comes across as believable. But then he goes over to Johnny Casper and essentially starts playing mind games with Johnny Casper, really causing him to doubt the loyalty of Eddie Dane, right? And it's an interesting, right? It's an interesting play, and it just goes to show you the intricacy in this movie, right? There's a movie very much akin to this, but it's more urban. I talked about it before. It's called Fresh, right? I believe that movie came out in the early 90s. I want to say maybe 92. I'll cover that movie at some point. Maybe I'll do it with my brother. I don't know. It's not really a hat movie. There are some hats, but that's not really a hat movie. But the movie Fresh, if you catch that, I want to say it's 1992, 93, somewhere in the early 90s, the movie came out. And I really recommend that movie if you guys are big fans of just I don't know, just really well done, kind of, I don't know what you call it. I think it's called just like the movie plays into chess, right? And that's what Tom Reagan is doing here. He's playing a chess match here amongst all these characters around him. And the movie Fresh is the same thing, but actually chess is actually involved in the storyline. I thought it was really well done. So shout out to that movie. I'll cover that at some point. But yeah, Tom Reagan's coming in here and trying to really do a number on Johnny Casper, right? To kind of destroy that organization from within. And he knows that the way he's going to do it is by getting Johnny Casper to turn on his right-hand man, right? Eddie Dane. So yeah, really well done stuff. Let's see. You can see here, right? That same shot. You can see here Tom Reagan right here sitting down right across from Johnny Casper. And then he's got, Eddie Dane right there watching, just staring. And Eddie Dane does not trust Tom Reagan whatsoever, right? He's constantly, trying to plot against Tom Reagan. And luckily for Tom Reagan, Johnny Casper wants nothing of it, right? Johnny Casper is a character that keeps talking about ethics, right? Weird to kind of hear a mob boss, right, talk about the idea of ethics. Ain't nobody got ethics no more, right? And it's really cool to see, right? It's one of those things that the Coen Brothers, they do that really well. They get characters to like say stuff that just is out of character and seemingly out of character, right? But it really gives you an enhanced view of of the nuances for each one. And then you can see a really cool shot of Tom Reagan's fedora right here from the back as he lays it on the table. It's just a really, really sharp fedora, right? It's got a little bit of that high crown, right? But that high crown is kind of like, it's kind of a tamed down by the width, right, of this ribbon, right? So remember we talked about like sometimes the crown height can be seemingly reduced by having a really thick wide ribbon, and you can see that both on Tom Reagan's fedora as well as Eddie Dane's fedora, right? You can see it right now. It's a really high crown, but he has that thick wide ribbon, so it really kind of tames it down. It makes the crown not appear as high as it actually is. So just interesting hats altogether, right? This movie's chock full of them, right? Here's an interesting shot of Eddie Dane without his hat, right? Doesn't look as menacing without his hat, right? Down low, but still a badass character. And you got here him sitting next to Tom Reagan. He's basically grilling Tom Reagan at any chance he can get because he doesn't trust Tom Reagan at all. He really doubts his motives, right? And he's just suspicious of him throughout. So that's actually the person that Tom Reagan's most worried about in all of this, because he knows that he doesn't trust him, right? So Eddie Dane's somebody he has to take out pretty, smartly, right? Because he's a badass character. So, and you can see here that Eddie Dane, right? Again, about to kill, one of the men that were protecting Verna, the love interest of Leo, and he just basically just a badass. He does work, right? Like just a badass character. Shout out to J.E. Freeman for his portrayal of Eddie Dane. And this is a scene here. Eddie Dane actually loses his cool, right? Right. He's kind of badass. I don't remember in particular what this scene was, but I thought that this shot was really cool, right? Eddie Dane in the movie has a soft spot for a gentleman called Mink, who's played by Steve Buscemi. And we'll show Steve Buscemi's Mink character a little bit in a second. But yeah, if I had to gather, this might have been when he found out that Mink was dead or something along those lines, right? Again, Eddie Dane, just like Tom Reagan, he's a character that really prides himself on staying cool, calm, and collected and in control, right? But this is a scene where obviously he's not, right? So really cool, really cool. And you'll see that theme throughout, right? The characters that really want to maintain control, losing control. So we'll go quickly into Verna. Verna's not really fleshed out in the movie that well, right? She's obviously the love interest of Leo, also a love interest of Tom Reagan, right? It's the main source of tension there for Leo, Verna, and Tom Reagan. All right, that kind of like that triangle. But she's also the brother of a local bookie, right? The local bookie that we were talking about in the beginning that Johnny Casper was trying to kill is her brother. And her brother is Bernie Birnbaum, and he's played brilliantly by John Turturro, right? What more can I say about John Turturro, right? You might know him as Jesus from The Big Lebowski and other Coen Brothers, right? He's really big in Coen Brothers movies. I believe he was also in Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? But I could be wrong. But John Turturro, right? We talked about, briefly, and I mentioned Spike Lee's Do the Right Thing. He was a big fixture in Spike Lee movies. I think he was also in Mo Better Blues. Just an iconic actor of the 80s and 90s, right? He probably still is, but I just remember him in the 80s, like the mid to late 80s and the 90s. John Turturro was everywhere. He did a great job, and he plays Jewish, kind of a Jewish bookie called Bernie Birnbaum. Again, you can see him here, another guy that prides himself on control, right? And having all the answers, knowing all the characters, and right, that's his business. But Johnny Casper orders him dead, and he sends Tom Reagan out to try to kill him. And you can see him here, right? So this is kind of a interesting scene, right? Because you got Tom Reagan here, who doesn't want to kill anybody, let alone kill Bernie, who's, right, the brother of his love interest, Verna, right? And he's in there. He's like, I don't know what I'm going to do, but I got to do this, right? My, Johnny Casper's boys gave me the gun and said that Johnny wanted me to take out Bernie, meaning Reagan. So he's out there, and you can see Bernie's character like losing control, right? He knows, right, that his life could be coming to an end very shortly, right? All he's doing is he's squirming, right? He's out getting it put into the middle of the woods, and you can see here, he starts losing it, right? He starts losing control, and you can see here he's begging for his life. This is kind of the iconic scene that's from the movie poster, right? You can see Tom Reagan there with the fedora, with the trench coat, and the gun in his hand, and you have Bernie's character literally on his hands and knees, begging and praying that Tom doesn't go ahead and kill him. It really is a very powerful scene, and it's really played well by both. But John Turturro steals the show, and I'll show you the next. This is like really a great shot, and it's basically just Bernie right there, just groveling, right, just groveling, begging for his life, and just trying to come up with the one thing or sets of things that he could tell Tom to get him to kind of let him go and not kill him. Just a really, really great job by John Turturro here. And I think in terms of acting chops, he probably he shows the best range in this entire movie. And it's not a poorly acted movie. It's just that John Turturro, remember we talked about Shia LaBeouf, and several other actors that really do a great job of showing the full range of emotion. I think John Turturro really showed his acting chops in this film, right? You see him groveling. He can just really do it all. I think John Turturro was also in a movie called Rounders, right, with Matt Damon and Edward Norton, right? He did a great job. He has those kind of small roles that steals movies, right? Everybody remembers the Jesus, right, from Big Lebowski. Shout out to John Turturro. He's really, I think, an underrated actor. He's kind of I just feel like he's one of those actors that I talk about that, like, even though he's shown some what he can do, he's never had that vehicle that's like put him at the forefront and like shot him to like what he could do. Maybe his best role is still ahead of him, to be honest. He's still acting as far as I know. Obviously he's a lot older now, but he's just really good, man. Shout out to John Turturro. Right, comes also from an acting family as well. Has brothers, right? I think Nick Turturro is his brother. Just a very talented family, and despite the fact that his brother's a Yankee fan, and is quite on X, constantly doing some videos on his, just goes a little out there sometimes. I believe that's Nick. Nick's a good guy, but despite the fact that he's a Yankee fan, shout out to Nick as well. But yeah, John Turturro kills it here. And you can see he does convince Tom to let him go. Tom, against his better judgment, just decides that he's not going to be a killer, not today. Right. So he goes and lets Bernie go and tells him, hey, you got to disappear and never come back, And then instead of paying him back with like compliance, Bernie does come back, right? So you can see him here surprising Tom by saying, hey, I had a chance to think about it. You let me go. Now I got something on you, right? So now I got, I know that you told everybody that that you killed me, and you'd get in a lot of trouble if people found out I was alive. So he comes back and he's wearing a flat cap. You can see his silhouette in the background, and you can see Tom doesn't even turn around. He's basically just talking to him with his back to him. So Tom is not worried in the least bit by Bernie, right? So like he's not going to make Tom lose his cool, right? But Tom, you can tell, is like, wow, that's interesting. Didn't expect that, but at the same time, I'm going to deal with it, right? So it's just really, really cool. I just love the way this movie is shot, and obviously he doesn't. Tom doesn't have his hat on, but he does have a watch on here, and he has it on his right hand, which is what I usually do as well. Interesting choice by I don't know if it was Gabriel Byrne's choice or whatnot, or if it was on purpose, but interesting choice nonetheless. So let's see what else we hear. More characters, right? We already talked about Bernie. Right? These are kind of the main characters already that we've talked about, and there's some more like I would be remiss if I didn't mention Steve Buscemi, right? What a great actor, right? He's very much like John Turturro in that respect, right? Steve Buscemi also steals movies. Now, he didn't steal this movie in this particular instance, right? Mink is a great character, but he's not fleshed out enough to kind of really hold its own. I think really I'm thinking of Steve Buscemi, right? The Steve Buscemi now and all the work that he's done, and that's why this stands out to me. But maybe back in 1990 when this movie was released, this didn't really. Steve Buscemi was not as popping as he was now. But yeah, Steve Buscemi, he did just a great actor, man. He just he does it right? He just he could do comedy, right? So have you seen him in a lot of Adam Sandler movies, doing comedy, but also just does some great gangster film stuff, right? Obviously, The Sopranos, Boardwalk Empire. Just some really good gangster stuff that Steve Buscemi is known for. So he's got good range, right? Doesn't have the emotional range as John Turturro, but he kind of has that, like, he goes beyond typecasting, I think, in many ways. So kind of like Robert De Niro, to be honest, right? Robert De Niro does comedy as well as the gangster stuff. He just has that tremendous range, and he looks at home doing both. So shout out to De Niro, shout out to Steve Buscemi. Just again, a really underrated actor. And he plays Mink, who's, Eddie Dane has a soft spot for Mink. That's when Eddie Dane loses his cool when Mink's involved, and Mink ends up turning up dead. So who else here? We got these again are the two main goons for Johnny Casper. We got Frankie over on the left, the big goon. He's played by Frankie. He's played by Mike Starr, I believe is the actor's name. And then we got Tic Tac, who's played by Al Mancini. They're just iconic goons, right? Like, I mean, they're just like, right? You always see the big guy. You got two goons. You got the big one, the muscle, and then you got the small one, who's kind of like, I don't know, just a weasel, right? So that's pretty much Frankie and Tic Tac. And you got, obviously, they're there with Tom, and Tom is just basically using the muscle that he has available to him, right? Just a really great shot. For the most part, you see Frankie and Tic Tac being background characters, right? They're the background muscle. So you can see here, Tom's there with his fedora on the table, and then you got Frankie and Tic Tac in the background. Same here, right? When Tom is allegedly in the woods to murder Bernie Birnbaum, you can see here Frankie and Tic Tac over at the car, just basically just kind of waiting for him to do the job and just kind of having a cigarette and chit-chatting, right? Just a great, great scene. I really do love the way they shot this movie in some of the wooded scenes, right? It's just very beautiful to look at. See the trees and just like the isolation in the that's being portrayed in the movie. Just a really cool and well shot. Obviously, you got cops, right? The cops are doing the bidding for whoever's in power, right? And at some point, Leo controls all the cops. But once Johnny Casper gets a hold and gets into power, the cops turn on Leo, right? You can see they're doing Johnny Casper's bidding by taking out one of Leo's night spots, right? So it's just interesting. You can see some of the undercover cops with the fedora and the trench coat, and then everybody else pretty much in uniform. You got some flat caps here as well, just to show a force, right? This is basically Johnny Casper saying, I control the cards now. And you can see they go end up shooting up the spot, right? Leo's spot. And then just to kind of wrap up here, we have also an interesting shot here. This is a scene where Johnny Casper's talking to the mayor, right? The mayor used to do the bidding for Leo. He's now gonna kind of do what Johnny Casper's saying. And the main thing right there is he's trying to get the job. He's trying to get 2 government jobs for his 2 cousins here from, I'm assuming from Italy. And you can see they have 2 twins, right? They look sharp with the suits, the mustaches, and of course the derby hats, right? Just a really good hat scene, right? For you guys that really love the derby / bowler hat. You get some of that in here as well. Shout out to the derby and bowlers. I do love mine, my 2 Stetson bowlers, or 2 Stetson derbies, that is. And it looks, like I said, the hat never looks bad, right? Maybe not as much as like the Hamburg. The Hamburg's still, I think, an apex, in terms of like the badassery. But the bowler and derby is really cool too. So you get some of that here in this movie, right? The flat caps, the fedoras, and the derby / bowlers. And then we got I think the last shot that I'm going to show. This is kind of just a interesting silhouette scene here with the little kid basically grabbing a toupee off of a dead corpse. It's just he's wearing a flat cap himself. Just a really sharp looking outfit. His dog is watching, and it just goes to show you some of like the, I guess for the Coen Brothers, what they were trying to do is just like what it's like to be a kid, right? And when all this gangsterism going around, right? You in there and you start becoming acclimated to like some dead corpse, right? And all you're gonna do is just, that looks like hair, like fake hair. Let me go grab it and run away with it. That's just kind of a chilling yet also kind of funny scene in this movie, and I just wanted to at least share that shot. Yeah, so that's basically all I got in terms of that movie. Man, what a great movie. I got to tell you, like I said, I really watch this. This is one of those movies I really regret not watching sooner, right? Right. It was made in 1990, right? Same year as King of New York, right? So, but I knew King of New York because it was just a movie that everybody was talking about in the urban area I grew up. Miller's Crossing was just not a movie people were talking about back in Brooklyn when I was a boy. But I got to tell you, it's a really good, well done movie. So shout out to the Coen Brothers. I think this is a much deeper movie. Like I said, I don't consider it just a plain old gangster movie. Like I put it right there with like with a Bronx Tale, right? It's more like a guy's movie, right? A thinking man's movie, kind of like The Godfather, right? There's a lot of psychological dynamics playing into here, and I feel like anybody could watch this movie and see something like this is a little bit more artsy than maybe a lot of folks give it credit for. So shout out to the Coen Brothers, man. What a great film. I can't wait to rewatch this. Who knows? Maybe down the road sometime, if I rewatch this enough times, I'll do another show about it. Maybe there's things that I miss in this show that I'll try to capture and talk about it. Or maybe I'll just rewatch it and then break it into conversation, the casual course of conversation. That way you guys can get some of that benefit. But yeah, if you haven't seen Miller's Crossing, completely recommend it. Like even if you hate artsy movies, right? Even if you hate artsy movies and you're just a hat guy that just wants to see some really great fedoras and a really great Prohibition-era movie, I recommend it, right? Like I said, some people don't like the gangster movies. I feel like this is a movie even a person that doesn't like gangster movies could like, right? It's a very noir type feel. You know, and it's just really cool. I mean, that's the main thing I can describe it. It's just, it's a cool movie and it plays on multiple angles. Right? If you're familiar with the Coen Brothers, this is no surprise, right? These guys do this. This is like their bread and butter. So yeah, check it out. If you guys never seen this movie, check it out. Let me know what you think about it. Hopefully you enjoyed that. Let me go grab the Fedora that I'm giving away at some point, right? When we talked about that, we're about like what are we at, 28 subscribers short. Once we get to that 100 subscriber mark, I will do a video on this Knox custom made for, it's licensed to a company in Canada to make for Knox, or with the Knox name. Right, it's got some moth bites, but it could be a good first hat or a good 100th hat, right? Maybe it's a good hat to restore. But once we get to 100 subscribers, I will do a video on this. I will pick out a comment, right? If you comment on that video and you happen to be a subscriber, I will give away this hat randomly to one lucky person. And like I said, even if you don't want to keep it for yourself, I'll work with you. Maybe I'll ask you to pick up the shipping, but I will get this hat to whoever you want me to get it to. And we'll do that, and then we'll keep giving away hats, right? Maybe at the 200 subscriber marks, I'll give away another hat, right? You know, Lord knows I got a decent number that I can do that giveaway with, right? Now I'm constantly acquiring more, so you know, just stick with the channel, support the channel, right? Like, we didn't have any guests, but you know that Robert's coming back on Tuesday if it goes as planned. So definitely catch him out. Support Robert and his hat business. Support Paul and his hat business and his channel. Also support Brad, the Hatted Professor, right? He's got a YouTube channel. I have them all linked, right? Josh as well, who's a hatter as well as a YouTuber. I have them all linked on my YouTube channel. So if you want to find them, you can go find them right on my homepage and just hit that subscribe button, show some support, right? If you want to, you can go and you haven't already, like the video, subscribe to this channel, just show support and try to help me get to that 100 mark, right? But you know where I'm going with this, right? Even if you don't support any of those gentlemen, which you should, and even if you choose not to support this channel, right? You do got to do one thing for me, right? Just do me one favor, or else I'll get Leo after you with the Tommy gun, right? And not to shoot you with the Tommy gun, right? Maybe just take the nose of the Tommy gun and just boop, hit the subscribe button for you, right? So if you don't want that, just do me that favor and just stay hatting, my friend. Have a great day. Ciao, everybody. Ciao. Happy Friday.